So you found a loophole to just have infinite time for.
Pretty much. What's up, people? We're all back again. Before I really start the stream, I may have a slight update of what happened before I even started. Um, well, basically, it's somehow um, basically I had to delete three streams, those three preview ones, as well. They're still on my channel. They're still on my channel, but they were I if I would do a broadcast on another stream, it would have been recorded and saved. I was in a good mood when I was like logging onto this StreamYard to just look at the start, and it was like, okay, what the heck just happened? I was like, this was the first time ever. That was so pretty much weird. Oh Jesus, that was like, I was like, did someone hit my head with a fry pan? Like, bang! Oh my God, that would be so weird. Uh,
Uh,
I mean, StreamYard, you're full of surprises. That just, they just so great, isn't it? uh,
Technology.
well,
Isn't it
well,
just
that's true.
messing around?
So, what you guys been up to today, though?
Nothing much.
oh, not much. Yeah, sure, at the same time.
Apparently, we're both up to nothing much.
Yeah, same here. I haven't really done much except I woke up around 1 p.m. time ish, and shower, had late dinner. I actually watched this show called A Haunting, which is an American about paranormal. This time, this is about season 10. I mean, I'll tell you, this particular episode was involved a doll, a haunted doll.
Uh-oh.
This couple, yeah, this couple bought this doll at this an antique store, but the two women in the store, they were unluckily want to sell this particular doll, which they one of the elder women told a story that this doll used to belong to a pregnant mother, but when she went into labor, she lost the she was expecting twins. She lost a boy stillborn, and she's have this feeling that the boy actually the boy's soul was trapped inside the doll. But sometimes,
geez.
but six years later, the mom died in a tragic house fire, but the daughter, she survived. So the daughter kept the doll for a number of years, and one day she came up to the same antique store. She sold the doll to them, the same women, and ever since then, it has been kept a wooden box with no the and the lock on it is the hatch, or like yes, it's like some of those had is like a wood key, but can't be removed.
Hmm.
But that one, the hatch or at least on that has been removed. So this couple who bought the doll later, they were actually paranormal investigators. I think the guy was named Steven. He used a pocket knife to open it, and they named the doll Norman because there's either a Norman or a doll, and it has been burned. So they took it home, and this couple were actually engaged. Woman's Christina, her youngest daughter Hannah, 16, was still at home, and she didn't like this particular doll. And this couple, they had, I believe, maybe 20 different dolls in their bedroom, but none of this was like this. So, long story short, the suddenly started things to happen. There were sounds, a lot of bangs on the front door, like 3 times. Like in the paranormal, is a sign of demonic.
Oh,
So yeah, but they didn't know what was like happened. They first believed maybe it was just some neighbor kids to make this ding dong ditching or like that. But no sign. So they bought some cameras, put it outside at the front porch, but also indoors, except for 2 rooms: Hannah's bedroom and her own bathroom. But Hannah started to feeling that this could have been something dark, or at least something paranormal in the house. Because when she was taking a shower, she had this feeling that someone was in there, but it wasn't. And then Christina, she has 2 grandkids named Adam, and the girl I don't remember exactly since I saw this episode just once today. But anyways, the boy Adam, he wanted to have Norman to sit in the bed with him to watch his TV while the girl was on her tablet, and Steven, he was on his laptop doing some work. But something did happen. As Steven left the room for only a moment, Norman was sitting on the bed and as this girl looked up, terrified, it's like she screamed. And this Steven, he actually pull up the recording of the camera which had in the bedroom, and sure enough, as he was sitting at the table, and they actually showed an actual recording when that happened, that Norman, he was sitting between 2 big pillows, and the head was slowly turning, facing Steven, and it turned back. And of course, they didn't want to have this doll anymore. Afterwards, a lot more things happened, so they found a woman that was interested to buy Norman. Um, she was actually had this interest in buying haunted dolls. So they sent her the doll, but at some point later on, there came a package. Norman had returned. The woman claimed that she never actually got the package, and the post office or the post service they had no record of what happened. But then, during Hurricane Matthew, a lot more stranger things happened. They managed to get both Christina and Steven went upstairs after hearing this huge slamming bang, and they went upstairs. And Hannah wasn't even there because she was terrified of because she believed this was possessed of Norman was going to kill her, like Chucky did. But it never happened like that. No one was never harmed in any way. So, well, basically, they went upstairs and they went to the bedroom, and Christina saw this figure in the mirror. And Steven, he used his phone and took a picture. Sure enough, he managed to capture a dark figure in the mirror. And they both started to believe it wasn't. They didn't know exactly if to believe it first. So they contact well Steven contacted an old friend of his, another paranormal investigator, and they managed to find out some more details. As they were doing, they took Norman to a hotel far from the house to do some investigations, to try to figure out what was actually, if it was a demon or just a human spirit that was inside the doll. And here's the thing: that when they were at the house, when just Steven and his friend, the temperature in the doors was 65 degrees. They're using this like a laser. Well, Steven used this like a laser to measure the temperature. It started at 65, but it dropped, and I dropped from 65 and played it to near 40s degrees. Like the door was colder, but it rested except for the rest of the room. It doesn't make sense. The only way for that to happen if the door had to be put in some sort of freezer or something, but it didn't. But after Sears investigated at the hotel, the friend he put a lighter in front of Norman. It said, "What do you want, Steven? Die, die." But they all came to conclusion that Norman wasn't possessed by the demon. It was actually the stillborn twin boy. But they believe that this boy actually aged spiritually. So Steven and Christina, they decided when they get home, they made a room just for Norman to be as that's was supposed to for a boy, but they believe that now that his spirit is 56 years old, and that he was
Ooh.
jealous. Norman, his spirit was jealous that he never has never to experience like the true love, the first love, get a first job, the first kiss, never get married. But now, after they put him in the room and they put a lock on it and they put the signs "keep out, authorized only," it suddenly stopped. All the other crazy things happened, stopped. But from time to time, they can actually hear giggling from the room. Then even when there are light indoors in front of the room, and it's like they can see someone is walking in front of the door, which is the doll. Ever since then, no much anything serious hauntings has ever happened. All that this doll
Hmm.
wanted, the only that this doll, the spirit wanted, to have a place of its own. That is going to show you when that before then, this couple didn't even believe in possessed dolls or anything like it. But there is such things like
Oh, trust
Annabelle.
me, I know that.
Annabelle is one of the most world famous, and that is one possessed doll you don't should not mess around with or taunt at all.
Yeah,
Because there,
but if
I heard, I
sorry,
heard one
but
guy.
if
I heard, yeah, continue.
sorry, but if I remember right, one of my friends told me that the doll that they sold in the movie wasn't the same appearance as the actual Annabelle doll.
No, no, that is true. It's not the same. It's not the same because in the movie the doll has this porcelain face, but in real life it's like this Annie Annie doll, like a with red hair and like a striped legs. But the fact is, there was one guy who he taunted doll of Annabelle, and
Oof.
he shouldn't have not done it because the same day when he was driving home on his motorbike, he died. He
Oof.
died in an accident. Yeah. And every time when Annabelle had to be moved from the case that she was in it, that's sitting on the wall, they had the priest to make a bless first and have a blessing when she was moved from one cabinet to another. Annabelle is one
Hmm.
doll you don't. Annabelle is one doll that you not should not be teasing or trying to make fun of, because one
Yeah,
guy
I know
did,
that.
and he ended up dead. Then there is Robert the doll, also a haunted doll, but he has not killed anyone, as far as I know. Um, well,
Though I
the
have
only
a
thing about
question though.
yeah, but the only thing about
Um,
Robert doll, yeah,
yeah, sorry. So what would your reaction be if you actually met a demon?
dude, excuse my French, but there is no way the hell I want to meet a demon. Are you insane?
I
There
think
is
he's
no way in
asking.
hell I want to meet.
I
I
think
mean,
he's asking if you did, what would your reaction be?
oh, if I actually met a demon, oh boy, I was like, I will try to do as much as possible that to have my home and myself cleansed. Otherwise, there's like I said, there's no way in hell I want to meet a demon at all. But
Yeah.
like I said about this, but like I said, this Robert Dog, people have been taunting him for quite some time, and those people having misfortunes like accidents, stuff like that, but they eventually stops when they send a letter back to the museum where Robert is in his glass case to apologize. After that, it all stops. So they're going to show you that even though Robert has never actually hurt anyone, like killing anyone, that's just showing you. But when it comes to Annabelle, well, same thing. You don't taunting anything that's possessed by demons or any particular things like it.
Oh, I
Because
know that.
even if the demon not may not kill you, but it could perhaps even transfer from an object into you.
And possess us.
Hmm. And like I did in this story before I even thought this made this stream, the word well exactly is about my haunted house. This is a fictional story, so it's not real. Um,
Yeah.
basically, this house was built in the late 1940s, and the first family that moved in lived there for 12 years to 1960 until the father killed himself after killing his wife and just barely almost killed their 12-year-old son, and he was possessed by a demonic spirit. And even
Oof.
though that a new family had moved in this house, that was the same family that I was part of the story. At first, nothing much happened, only like some cracking in the floor above, some behind outside someone's bedrooms. But that is can actually be explained. If a house is built in the late 40s, that's almost 70, almost 80 years old, makes sense. Older house makes a lot more cracking sounds, and the house settings can also be getting that. So that's it could be a more logical sense. But there were a lot of sounds like whispering, like "get out, leave my house," and as the father started to acting like not himself, like he screams every single time and like almost have this demonic tone in his voice. And that
Oof.
as the best and that's always the best way to get rid of a demon is to have a priest or a pastor or anything that's part of the church or an exorcist with maybe along with a medium or psychic and have a strong prayer could actually do it. But not all the time it does not work. I saw one episode of The Haunting many times, many years ago. There was a family that moved in a house, a two-floor house, I believe. There was one floor upstairs, but bedrooms and like that. They were having this strong demonic or strong hauntings in the house. almost like a demon slash poltergeist. But the thing is, they had a priest came over to bless the house. It's at first it seems to be working, but then it started once again, but this time a lot more worse. So the family, they had no other option. Just they left the house middle of the night, leaving all their possessions, other furnitures, personal items behind. And even ever since, the house has still named remained vacant, like unoccupied. And neighbors across the street still can see from the upstairs in one of the bedrooms the light turns on, but no one lives. And even the power has been cut off. So I explain that. So that goes to show you,
Yeah.
despite you tried to hire to bring a priest or a pastor or a shaman, well, speaking of shaman, same show, same season, season 10, there was this guy who was actually, he usually went to different haunted locations. Well, it's like old mansions, something like that, and having this, like a, telling ghost stories for people. In one of those mansions that he went to, it were actually home to a family known as Crown Shield, I believe it was called. They were one part of the family, Richard, a cousin to the original owners of the house. He was a murderer. I don't remember exactly what led up to it, but he killed a prominent. He killed a very much wealthy man in his sleep with a lead pike or a poke or very much a baton, but a thick one with the lead 3 times. But that he wasn't. He stopped. He stabbed the same man 13 times around the heart, and he was eventually hanged. And the same guy, like I mentioned, who was before this ghost stories, he uh, he actually allowed. He actually, well, he was trying to get any spirit to enter his body so that he could communicate with his spirit for the people at his stores. Eventually, it did, but it turned out to be the same spirit of the same murderer from the 1700s. This Richard was actually part of a prominent family, a very social one. He, well, this guy was actually named Sam. Surprising enough, though. But he started to have this like a nightmares when his best friend Mike showed up, having him stab him, killing him. But he never did. He didn't do that. There was like a vision in front of his eyes. So he put all the kitchen knives he had in a plastic box and gave it to Mike to leave. So, well, long story short, he one of his friends, another paranormal author as himself, reached out to shaman, and this shaman actually helped by summoning uh, two Native American spirits, like guides, to help to get rid of this demonic, this deep, dark spirit. And it worked. Ever since then, you not should not be just saying to any physical spirit to allow them to possess you, because that is the problem that happens. If you do, you have no idea if that is a normal spirit or even a dark spirit. Like Harry Kubo.
Hmm?
Have you ever heard of Harry Houdini by any chance?
Nope.
Harry Houdini?
No, I never heard of him.
For God's sake, you not you too. Oh, well, basically, Harry Houdini is were um, the most well famous escape artists and magicians in the business. He could actually spend one time in a tank filled with water while having a straitjacket, and he was handcuffed as well. And he managed to escape from that and survived. The only thing that killed him was one of the fans punched him in the stomach, and broken, I believe, broken or splint, not the spleen, but the apex, the part of the intestines that we knows that's no has no much, uh, basically doesn't have no any use for. But he was a very much strong disbeliever in supernatural, paranormal, or the science, or medium or psychics. So each time he went to different locations where psychic or mediums were supposed to be, to prove them not to be real or not. For most part, they were fake. But there was one case where when he actually, when the psychic or the medium claimed that she had a contact with his late grandmother, and he called him by Harry in English, but she did speak English, and Harry wasn't his birth name. His birth name was Eric Weiss, and that made him to realize none of that what this medium or psychic told him wasn't real at all. It was just another scam. If this had been mentioned, his real name, his birth name, and in Hungarian, which he was actually born in Hungary. He was a Hungarian American citizen, but if she had been spoken in Hungarian language and speaking his birth name, then he could have believed that was actually her. If you really want to go, I mean, if you want to do a science with someone or their friends or family, or to go to medium, that's fine. But for love of Jesus, God, Snake, and never use a Ouija board because those are used. I mean, they are often drawn demons or other dark spirits toward you, and that can be a little bit difficult to get rid of. I remember one story that was a family that actually had one of those Ouija boards, but let's say it didn't let up in a good way. They tried to get rid of it. They broke it in half and threw it in the trash. Next day, it was indoors, whole, completely repaired. They burned it. It was back in the house the next day, unburned. Think about it. If that happened to what just one Ouija board, when it comes to like dark spirits, but most people don't believe Ouija boards aren't even real things to be in contact with spirits. That most people believe that the people are moving the glass or the item to make since the Ouija boards is filled with letters and numbers, and the only way to have it stopped is to make sure it says goodbye in the end of each session. Otherwise, if you don't, the door to the spirit world is open. That means any spirits, friendly and dark spirits, or in the worst case, demons, can enter your home. Even if you did haven't closed the door, and if you took that Ouija board at any place, let's say if Kyle or Game Guy would use the Ouija board at his mom's place and not had even used and even said goodbye and would not realize it and take it to his dad's place, both houses could be and end up haunted.
Oof.
That happens because every time you use one, you have to make sure you say goodbye. Otherwise, the door to the spirit world remain open. Dark spirits, like poltergeists, pranksters, can show up. But like I said, the absolute worst demons can show up. And even mirrors can be a portal to the spirit world. An actual normal mirror can be a portal to the spirit world. And that basically becomes like people or other religions or let's say Native Americans, they take it really deeply carried but very strongly in belief of the supernatural. Like the Navajo, who strongly believes in the skinwalkers. And that is one thing. If you were ever even to go to one of those the reservations, the Navajo there lives there, and if you try to even talk to the elder generation, like say grandparents or those who are like in their almost 100 years old, and if it's mentioned by this like his English name, they would not even answer anything about it. Not even if you mention their the skinwalker's actual Native American Navajo name, they refuse. They will even tell you to drop it, not to mention that name things around them. Because their belief is that by just talking about it, mention his name, will draw attention towards you. And that, according to at least the mythology, well, according to the most modern times that most people claim to see models, they can, if anyone has been driving a car, I believe there was one story I heard, one drove the car 100 miles per hour, and this particular creature, which you know is a skinwalker, was able to run after the car on two legs. It could probably, if the car would even drive as 200. I don't know if this creature could even be able to run after at the same speed. But they're usually is 7 to 8 feet tall, skinny, antlers as a like a deer's head with the skin off, like rotten flesh hanging out the body. That is usually what those creatures looks like. But luckily though, some people don't even believe those are not even real. But as my dad once told me, there are things between heaven and earth that science can't explain. So if like the skinwalkers, they can exist, but we don't know. Like Loch Ness Monster, the Bigfoot, the Yeti, or basically any of those cryptid creatures can exist. I mean, like Kraken. People has had believed in the Kraken for centuries, and despite that, no one actually don't know if Kraken is an actual species or if it's a made up thing at all. I mean, back in the late 1700s and early, what then 1800s, for those where you can actually see pictures of ships that has been surrounded by this giant squid monster is Kraken. But in fact, it's likely those stories has been seen an actual giant squid, but it never actually was that big and never actually attacked the ship. But some of the sailors made up the story to make this more excited or more terrifying. And in fact, even despite if you want the 1800s, despite then, the giant squid wasn't officially recognized as a living species until like in the early 2000s when they actually found one alive in the ocean. Before then, they were just considered as a possible as official species. The same thing is for Bigfoots. Despite people seeing it for almost 200, for around 200 years, no one actually has never found an even a single remains, like official or any actual remains, like bones at all. People have sometimes claimed that they actually fired and killed a Bigfoot, but never came forward to prove it. Think about it. If that happened, why has those people never actually came forward? But then there is a supposed Minnesota Iceman, where I suppose a man found this small hobbit-like creature, like a half ape, half human, in a lake, frozen. And he traveled around with that. This was actually, I believe, it was in the early to late 60s. He traveled around with this on a carnival in the US during the time. But then later turned out it was just a rubber mask costume. It was fake. But then people thought, what if that actually could have been any cryptid creature that is a hobbit size? Well, I can bring the news for you because back in 2003, they actually found remains of a hobbit-sized humans on the island Flores. They actually found those, and they were not even that primitive. They were even though they were small as a hobbit, but they still had brain capacity to make tools like spears and using stone tools. So if hobbits or Homo florensis, as they are officially called, if they existed and they went extinct around I believe it was 12 to 14,000 years ago, if they managed to exist, a small hobbit human-like creature did exist around the same time as modern man, and even at the same time as Neanderthals. So who's going to say that if those hobbits did exist, what about the other cryptid creatures like Bigfoot, Yeti? Well, despite that many those supposed claims of evidence were to be found in Tibet monastery, like scalp for supposed to be from a Yeti, and there were those hands. The hand turned out to be a human, and the scalp turned out to be a goat. But there's another of those creatures that might be a possible explanation who could actually be in the Yeti. There is a species that is pretty much twice twice as big as a modern orangutan. This one is called actually Gigantopithecus. It was basically like a 7 to almost 8 feet tall orangutan, but that went extinct around 300,000 years ago. Some experts, some scientists believe maybe that they did survive and that they continue to evolve and that they may have been also the could have been the direct ancestor to the Yeti. So it is possible. And there is even claim of other Bigfoot creatures in Vietnam, Australia, South America, and even the United Kingdom. Well, supposedly at least. But do you guys even think that any of those such cryptid can actually exist?
I don't think so.
What about you, game guy? Do you believe any of those cryptids can actually exist, like Bigfoot or Nessie or anything?
Not really.
Well, it is possible. For example, and since Vietnam, which has very much dense jungle, and since a lot of the jungle hasn't even been settled much, and since most of the in a lot of those areas is probably pretty much maybe as still uncharted or as unexplored, so it's possible that uh, those Bigfoot creatures possible can actually been there. I mean, miles of dense jungle hasn't even been officially explored. So it's possible a smaller Bigfoot creatures can actually live there. Considering for one place, like almost equal, it would be Alaska. Even though Alaska has is the one of the has miles after miles of dense woods, and a lot of Alaska's wilderness hasn't even been officially explored. So who was to say that Alaska may not even have a small or a medium-sized population of Bigfoots or Sasquatch? And since Canada also has a lot of forests, who would even say that? Who would even go to say that maybe some parts of Canada can also have a decent size of a population of Bigfoots? I mean, it's possible. I mean, even despite we have found footprints, which many turns out to be fake, but we had never found any actual proof that they actually exist, like say actual remains from them. But it's possible that if they're supposed to be that elusive for us men humans, what if that they actually like are like humans, but they buried their dead? Because long time
Hmm.
ago, scientists believe that only the modern man, like our own ancestors, like from like say during the 10,000 years ago up to now, was the only known species that actually did have a culture that buried their dead. But it later turns out that Neanderthals had the ability to speak, and they even had a culture, and they did bury their own dead. So why not understand that maybe as Bigfoots, even though it may not be in the same intelligent level as we are or as the Neanderthals, if we're not being saying that maybe they would be smart enough, that maybe have some form of intelligence, that they buried the dead in sort of graves in some remote places, or maybe they burned their remains after one of those members. Because we are done the same thing for centuries. We have been buried our dead people, our family members and friends. And we had even we even cremated our loved ones, and we have been doing it even today. So why not just saying that? What if Bigfoots had done the same thing? That they buried their dead ones or burned them and only buried the ashes, because when they've been burned to ash, there is often not much left, just ash and maybe only fragments of bones. I mean, if you think about it, if the Bigfoot are supposed to be smart enough, why wouldn't that not go to show you or say that what if that the Bigfoots actually were smart enough to have been buried their dead or perhaps even cremated them? And since cremation often doesn't even remain left any leaves, any much bones left. They only like bone fragments. And even if like you were to go in the woods and you dig in the ground and found small pieces of bones, and that they're so small that not even as an expert can determine what species this belong to. Some may say that maybe some may say, this is a bone from a deer or an elk that has been dying years ago. But they declared signs that they had been burned otherwise. And since humans there is the only known species on the planet that knows to burn, that cremate humans, and since that is possible, and if they would have found burned bodies remains like middle of nowhere, that would clearly have been otherwise considering as a murder, an unsolved murder. But if they can find that these bones doesn't contain human DNA, or perhaps even such so badly damaged or badly burned and badly degraded that they can't even find any much, and if they manage to find just a small fragment of DNA, but doesn't match any human DNA at all, maybe they could have found something that's not even human, or could have kind of considering some like people say that's Bigfoot DNA, but without any actual other physical remains, that would be inclusive. Think about it. If humans can be buried their dead and burn them for centuries, why not to say if Bigfoots, if they had that type of intelligence, like we did in our prehistoric times. But they can actually be buried, the dead ones, and even burn them. Just imagine, like, if that was even the thought that they actually had that type of intelligence. It's like, okay, if we focus on another one, Nessie. Nessie has been spotted since the 1930s, but but people has been using sonars in that particular lake for decades. They have even tried to use submarines, try to go as far as deep as possible, but never found anything. Because not only that, Loch Ness is so murky and it's impossible to see exactly what's even down on the bottom of the lake. Man-made, homemade submarines can maybe not even go to the deepest part of Loch Ness. They can only to the severe depth, but people have been using sonars since like maybe as a since probably like the 50s, and that's decades of research for years. But every single time they found any big target had often been dismissed as school of fish, or maybe as a big catfish, or even simply as, or maybe an otter, or on the surface, often being described as a log, a piece of wood that makes this that looks like if something is swimming on the surface. A lot of things had been excluded, had been explained that way. And since people have been down on the bottom, that has even maybe had used unmanned submarines or maybe probes, had explored the bottom of Loch Ness. But since the lake is so murky, it's impossible to say exactly what if it is even a home to a lake monster. Sup, Skyless Cyclone?
Hello.
What been up to, you freaking ghost?
I'm not ghost.
Kind of looks like one.
Whatever.
Whatever.
I just came across the stream a little big on YouTube, and I noticed that Game Guy's avatar was not showing.
Some things never change. Oh my god. Hold on, I think I can fix it.
Yeah, I should also warn you about StreamYard for some reason.
It's gonna be Discord for a second.
As I was about to start my stream about 47 minutes ago, it showed I was unable to start it since I have 5 hours recorded videos already. Pretty weird. Because this is the absolute very first time that ever happened. So I was having an option to delete those streams. Well, not permanently, but I somehow deleted them as recorded a recording, but it's still almost on my channel. I think it is. Let me see. This will take a second. Meantime, what you been up to though, Cyclone? Fagu Moon Mist?
Yeah.
Is that like a 7-Up or Spirit or Sprite or something?
Fago is its own brand.
Yeah, but is it a? But it doesn't taste the same thing though.
Kind of.
Well, to be fair, I never heard of that brand.
From?
Being fair, I never heard of that particular brand.
Me neither.
I mean, it is likely it's an American brand, so more would make sense.
But
I mean, a lot
I'm
of
from America and I've never heard of it. So
well, that's. I mean, consider that. Okay, there are probably a lot of different brands of chips, popcorn, or pop soda, as they call it. You may not even heard of it. Okay,
yeah.
first of all, and you probably heard about the Lay's chips, have you?
Yep.
I never heard about those until almost like 2 years ago. I didn't even knew that they existed. And that apparently is an American brand apart, if I think at least. And then in Hershey's, that like until almost 3 to 4 years ago, I never even knew those things even existed. And Milky Way, same thing. I never even knew that one didn't exist either. So a lot of American brands that is common in your country, but some of them are may not even be common, or some of them are not being sold here at all. But some are, but not much as popular as I thought it is. Like Reese's peanut butter, like those. I thought maybe that was not even sold here at all. But turned out that in my sister's town where she lived, well, there is a store and they are selling that. And the only time I was aware this exists because my girlfriend sent me Reese's peanuts cream, or what's it called, and it's like, okay, I'll try it, but I didn't like them at all. It's just not one of my, I'm not much a big fan of peanuts at all, to be honest. I tried at least by my mom. Jesus, she liked them. But one day when me and my mom we were at the store where I mentioned, and I was like around the candy aisle, I was like, okay, looking for this, and boom, just in front of my eyes, Reese's peanut cutters. Oh my, what? American candy here. Shocking. But the only two places that I actually know that Milky Way chocolate bar is sold is a small convenience store not far from where I live. And the second place that at least I know is at a hospital in a those vinegar machines in the same town as my sister lives. That's the only two places that I know they exist. But it wouldn't say much as it is possible they could probably sold different places throughout my country. And I mean, a lot of American brands has been not saying that it's unlikely those will be not sold. Like say Pepsi, which is an American brand of drinks. They actually been sold, and they've been sold worldwide. And in that they have different flavors. Some of the flavors have only been accessible to in like America only. Others has only been like when they were, and then had only been brand the flavors only accessible in Europe, never been sold in America. That makes sense. And like say Coke, they have been flavors that many different flavors like cinnamon, raspberry, vanilla. Um,
I've never tried Pepsi Raspberry.
no, but no, they don't have that. I think it is. But America, I mean, Coke, they have with raspberry, cherry, cinnamon, vanilla, and lime or sorry, lemon. But Pepsi European version they had sold in the early 2000s, they were actually with cucumber.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I was like, are you serious about it? Like cucumber? And they were not sold in my country. It was like in Romania and some other part of the world. But I was like, okay. But Sherry Coke, mm. Yum yum yum. Sadly, I haven't
Um,
seen that much. I haven't seen that much around for quite a while though. But Coke is the best. Ugh,
It's
thanks
just
for my
me reminding everyone that I'm not a soda fan here.
Yeah, I know. Um, but there is even one of the things that my parents have made me get used to
Swedish.
is entry drinks. Yep.
If Pepsi made grape flavor, would you try it?
Wait, what?
If
He
Pepsi, if Pepsi made a grape flavor, would you try it?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I would try it.
And my brain just kind of derped out a bit. What if Pepsi did a coconut flavor?
You know what? Pepsi
Well,
coconut.
as you know, the coconut criticizer would be all over that.
Um,
Well, that would be true, except you're not in your shy. You don't have your shy guy
mm,
avatar.
I do have my
um,
Shy Guy avatar
no,
though. On the
I don't
stream
think
manager,
it
I
actually.
think, don't I?
Um, no, but I know that at least that Pepsi did with mango, which is so good.
What?
Yeah,
Huh.
Pepsi with mango, but they actually did only about. I think it was only about like a couple of years
Now
ago.
is it
I
showing
think
my
maybe it's two.
profile?
Yeah, I can see yours.
It's not showing up for Malachi for some reason. I don't know why.
What I do is I go to another avatar, then swap back to the original that I want to be in.
Okay, okay. Pepsi Ice Cucumber was a Pepsi flavor that was exclusively released only in Japan in 2007 in stores as a limited edition,
Mhm.
a summer of 2007. But like I said, it is possible that if Pepsi would make with the raspberry, I would definitely like to try it though. The only flavors that my parents didn't like much is at least my mom doesn't like Coke with Coke with cherry,
Whoa!
Coke with raspberry. She didn't like that much. But they never. I
Swedish?
don't think they never tried Coke with cinnamon because cinnamon. Yeah, I tried it. It was okay though. I will be
Well,
muted for a bit.
What's going on, Malachi?
this might shock you, and I don't know. And I wanted to tell him this. Um, I just saw a Pepsi flavor that was somehow sold in Russia. Guess what it is?
Banana,
Nope,
coconut,
nope.
Try.
I'll give you a
peach,
hint. I'll give you a hint. It has a dessert in its title.
birthday cake.
Chocolate.
Nope, nope.
Ice cream.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so weird. Now it
yeah,
looks like I'm Lord Antiochus.
yeah. It was
Weird.
somehow sold
Let's
in
see if I can fix
Russia.
that.
Somehow sold in Russia. They sold Pepsi ice cream.
Don't think I would try that. I mean,
Oh,
I do like ice cream and Pepsi, but combining the two together?
hey, my if they can do if they can mix ice cream with root beer for root beer floats, why can't you do it with other pops? Think that over, Kovu.
Also, I didn't know you were Russian.
Uh, my mom actually cursed once in Russian.
Wait, what?
Yeah, she actually cursed in Russian one time, and I did not know that.
Wow.
Um, also, um, they did. Let's see. Here in North America, they did Pepsi Wild Cherry. That's a pretty good. Pepsi Strawberry Burst. Ooh, I wish I had tried that. With Pepsi with strawberry flavoring. It was released as part of the Pepsi Wild Bunch, and that was created back in 1991, as well as Pepsi Tropical Chill. Listen to this, Kovu.
So what?
Really, uh,
So what do you mean? It's obvious. I want that.
I don't even know
Oh, sh-
what the heck is happening with my device right now. I don't think I can fix it.
Yeah, well, Cole was making sounds. All of a sudden, he's doing.
Ba-da-ba.
Don't worry.
Game guy.
What?
Did you know Pepsi back in 1991 made three flavors called Raging Raspberry, Strawberry Burst, and Tropical Chill?
This is the part of the stream where I remind everyone that I'm not a soda guy nor a Pepsi guy. So why would I
Yeah.
know that? Again, because I already did remind everyone, so I've reminded everyone again. That's 2 reminders. Look at that. But no, I did not know that.
Wow.
Oh my fucking god!
I know me not knowing when I am not a fan of Pepsi because I don't like soda. What a shocker.
You mean you've never had soda pop in your life?
Nope. Not once.
You should. It's not that bad.
Eh, I was never really into. I know it's not an energy drink, but I just call all soda energy drinks because that's pretty much what they all are. They involve sugar. It's a sugar rush. It's whatever.
Well, they're not that
Oh my
bad.
god, that's
Well, they're
weird.
not that bad unless you drink a bottle of water afterwards.
Well,
I
that means okay. How about this? If you eat too much sugar, like candy, that will should probably like considered as like an energy drink. The contains of sugar.
Swedish.
Yep.
I was looking at some Pepsi variations. In 1991, Pepsi had a Pepsi Wild Bunch, and they had these flavors that I want to mention. They had
Raisin raspberry. I don't know if I have actually had that one before. Hello, still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
the Pepsi Wild Bunch also included the other 2 flavors I mentioned.
Though I
Strawberry
definitely like the cherry one.
tropical chill.
It's
That's
Pepsi.
good.
It's Pepsi with an orange and pineapple tropical mix flavoring.
Sounds better.
Nah, I
Well,
prefer the I prefer the cherry Pepsi.
Ow.
It's better.
damn it. That hurts.
Ooh, Kovu.
Ah, damn it.
Kovu.
That hurts.
What?
Did you know Pepsi sold a Pepsi candy flavor in Canada in spring of 1999?
Candy flavored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pepsi fruit sweet candy flavor sold in Canada in spring of 1999.
What type of candy?
Like I did.
This is the part of the stream
Who
where we
knows?
yell at Kofor where he doesn't understand what we're trying to say.
He asked for what flavor of the candy it is. That
It doesn't say.
I know that's why we're
But
yelling at him
it's-
because
but
it's,
it's
it's not really a flavor. It's supposed to just be like
I'm-
candy in general.
All I'm getting is that it's
Bum, bum, bum.
it's a fruity sweet flavor.
Can you imagine if they made that chocolate flavored?
They made a hot
good.
chocolate flavor.
Ew.
What? Are you insinuating that you do not like hot cocoa?
No, but
Well, I-
hot cocoa and Pepsi together.
Sounds interesting. I will try it. Okay, cool.
Wait,
cool.
what?
How about this? How about this? Pepsi with cucumber flavor.
Ugh. Bleh.
That happened. That had happened. Pepsi Ice Cucumber limited edition in Japan, also in for a only
But
short time in Europe, never in America.
if there was Pepsi hot peppers
God damn
flavored,
it.
I would try that.
Ooh,
Like Pepsi jalapeno flavored or something like that. That would be great.
Pepsi Ginger.
Ginger.
I really like them. I don't really like ginger that much.
It's a variety that
Blech.
blended Pepsi with ginger ale.
Bleh, I hate
I
ginger
never had
ale.
I never had ginger ale, so I wouldn't even know.
Swedish. I told
Ugh.
Game Guy this a little bit ago. Did you
God
know
dang.
that in Europe and Russia they sold a Pepsi flavor called Pepsi Ice Cream?
Damn it, that hurts.
What is going on over there?
I tried to open a bottle, but an ancient drink, but I had cut my I cut my fingernails too short, so I can't lay grip a grip. Ah, there we go. Ah,
Swedish. I want to
do that.
slap myself. I want to slap myself silly. I want to slap myself silly.
Why?
ow.
I
Yeah, I did slap my face, slap on my hand.
Here,
I will slap that hard on Kubo's face. Unless that
Oh,
he is
come
possessed by
on.
the demon. Unless that he is sleepwalking or possessed by the demon.
Here, I'll just hit my hand with my controller.
If I was possessed
Ow.
by demon, the world would end.
Dude, if you were possessed by a demon, I would like, well, Kubo, it was nice to know you, and I will go bang your girlfriend for you. Bye! That probably
Bruh,
snap
hey,
you out of
don't
it.
do that.
Okay, first of all, if there were usually if nothing worked to snap out of you under the demon's control, but if I said like if I said it and look serious, like Kubo, if you can't snap about it, I probably go to say I will say go I will go to Sabrina and say, well, Kubo give me permission to bang you, and she'd be like, okay. And if she says that on the
Oh,
phone
come on.
and you're hearing it, okay, I mean, okay, if I told her, if I met her and told her that this is probably the only way that I can think of to snap out of you the control of snap out of it of the demon's control, even for a brief moment. Like if she says, yeah, you can come over and we can do it. If that worked, okay, they probably like give you enough time to have you out of control permanently. But if it didn't work, I would have applied. I wouldn't even know what else to do. Either that or
Well, if you did that, I would probably summon hellfire on the whole planet.
probably that, and you lose, and you'll be like Satan's new wife.
Bro. Nah, Satan be my bitch, yo.
Ooh, no. Skylight beat would be it, definitely.
Oi!
I'm not touching that with a 6-foot pole.
I don't touch that mess. I won't even look at Kubo's face because that would petrify me to stone like Medusa.
I wish I could turn people to stone. That would be great.
Dude,
Oh
seriously?
shit,
Oh,
Spike is here. Oh no, it's just Spike.
okay. How about King Midas?
King who?
Who?
You mean
King Midas. King
Midas?
Midas was
Who that?
he is a character. He is a figure in the Greek mythology. Everything he touched turns into gold. Like
no, yeah, I know
solid
him.
gold. Yeah. Like that mention is like in Aladdin 3, the return of his father, like that, is King Midas. Yeah, so having that, if you have that ability to turn anything to gold, yeah, you would not survive. Because if you're like fixing a burger, ding, turns solid gold. If you have a glass of water, that turned into solid gold. If you tried, okay, if you only had one, if there was only one hand that turned things to gold, okay, that makes sense. But it's like Peter Griffin in this like a special episode they made where everything he touched turned to Robbie Williams. So he cut off his
Oh
own
no.
hand. He cut off. He literally cut off on off his own hands and had this only the stump of the hand and to move around things with. All his
Yeah.
family, Meg, Chris, Brian, um, well, Lois, turning into Robert Williams, but Stewie was the only one who's not because he was on the roof when all that happened. And not only humans and a dog like Brian, but even items like the microwave, TV, or I don't know, even the house would turn into like a living Robin Williams. He decided
Yeah.
to send out those that he had turned already to as Robin Williams out of the world. But he kept only a few, like four of them that's to be acting as each member of the family. But after he had cut off his hands, he was like, yeah, Lois, they're great coffee. He had lost his mind. Little about that. That was just
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, is I mean, okay, imagine this: trapped on an island for just yourself, and okay, despite that you having shelter and have enough fresh water and even enough supply of food that you can survive for like forever. But living on an island just yourself, you would definitely would lose your mind. Like
Yeah.
say, Cast Away with Tom Hanks. He was completely alone, and he had this volleyball which he named Wilson, would have a bloody handprint at which he made a face on it. He had the ball as his only companion, which almost in a way is not losing his mind. It's like Robinson Crusoe, which is a book made in the 1800s. That is actually kind of based on a real story. He ended up on an island, and he stays there for a whole year. Think about it. He had everything that he needed, and he made a friend of a named man, but not from that island, but from some other, which he called Friday. Because he named it that because there was on a Friday when he actually became friends with this man. Just imagine, like, people that often live in insulations can lose their minds.
Yeah.
Well, though there is one man who didn't. This man recently passed away, but only like last year. But his real name is not known. No one knows exactly what his. No one knows his real name, and don't even know what language he spoke because he
Wow.
remained because he remained in the Brazil jungle since the late 90s because loggers wiped out his entire clan or his tribe. And this man was known as Man in the Hole. He was sleeping in a hole, and they found him. And since he did have some sort of uh, limit contact with the outside world, but after a while, some people actually went to his camp or his where he lived, found him in a hangar, um, dead. Apparently, he died at least about maybe as
Really?
a week before that. Yeah, so they found him dead, but they buried him eventually. So they don't. That was the last of his
Uh
people.
huh.
And there is another island
Mhm.
known as North Sentinel near India. And that entire island is completely off limits for a good reason.
Wow.
Because that island, and here's the thing, no one knows exactly how many people who live the island. Some sources say that it can be from as 50, 200, 30, 10, 15. No one knows exactly. And these people are really primitive. They don't even have fire. But anyone who approached the island will be being approached. They will be having arrows or spears thrown at them. These people have been approached by the Indian government by sending them cooking tools, toys, anything
Mm-hmm.
that they need,
Mm-hmm.
they could need, but they never used them. Then, 2018, a young American missionary was decided to try to convert these people to Christianity. He went there, 2018, and it was never heard of because he died. They killed him. And even that, despite that, the Indian government, they never went there. They never went there to retrieve his body. So, assumedly, the people ate him or just simply buried him. I don't know. No one knows exactly what happened. And another thing is that that's also like the lost city of C, as the first letter in Saini's name, that letter, that was actually Percy Fawcett, a British explorer, also a part of the British Army or military at the time. This was actually during the early 1920s. He tried to go back. He tried to find the supposed lost city in the early 1910s, I believe, but it stopped. It was prevented because the First World War started, and that prevented him from doing it. So he went back there after the war. This time he brought his nephew, and his nephew wasn't even that old. I believe he was early to mid 20s. And every time he sent back a message with a runner back to civilization with a letter saying about his progress, where he was going. But the thing is, he never told anyone exactly where they're going. Like, um, they he left very much cryptic messages because he used to be a spy for the British government. But then, I think it was 1925, the last letter he sent after the last letter he sent to back in the UK, no one actually heard from him or his nephew. After like that, 100 people was sent back to Brazil. But the thing is, that's a problem. He never actually mentioned exactly which direction or which way they were going. But those 100 men went in, never came out. They disappeared. Another thing is, decades later, a Native American tribe in that jungle claimed they actually found him, they killed him, and ate him. But they cannot be confirmed because even if there were bones left, no one knows either. It's like back in like in 1500s when the Spanish started explored in the South America. Those they were like, say, if you had a troop of maybe as 200 soldiers, if you started on the same coast like where Rio de Janeiro is located on the east coast, and you're going to west coast, like say where Ecuador is, how many people do you of the troop do you think that remains of the 200? Not many. Of the 200, maybe maybe as close as only like 5 or 10 soldiers, because most of the time native tribes in the jungles could have been hostile to strangers. But another thing is also what this was most of it, tropical diseases, malaria, other things, which we never had any immunity. They died. And it could also be starvation, because they couldn't simply have supplies with them. But after a while, those supplies will run out. And since they are in uncharted territory, not knowing what fruit or what plant is edible or is poisonous, and of course the weather, walking around in a dense jungle, having maybe a light armor, which can have been, if it's say the normal temperature in say the normal temperature in like in Michigan is, say, let's say it's like say 70 or maybe as 80 degrees in the summer, but in jungle the temperature can feel twice as hot. Immunity, where the moist in air can be from maybe as 90 or 100%. That combined with the extreme temperature and heat, wearing an armor, it will make you heat strokes. And not only that, animals. There are dangerous animals in the jungles in South America. You have jaguars, you have spiders, you have the poisonous frogs, and like that, any many other diseases. And even if you do eat anything, even if you have a troop of 200 soldiers traveling through the entire South America on the coast, you may not even have as full force anymore. If you're unlucky, maybe the entire force, maybe like say has only 5 managed to survive. Think about it, because back then no one didn't know. And like I told Game Guy yesterday, that trail tears in addition, as this is actually American his part of history. Like thousands, like 15,000 Native Americans from the Mississippi area were forced to be located from that place to other parts like Oklahoma and Ohio, because the American they wanted to have the land for to grow cotton, because there was a perfect condition there. And of the 15,000 people that moved, 4,000 died. It could have been elderly, young kids, babies. And even despite that Andrew Jackson was the president at the time, and I believe was the Cherokee chieftain, he actually had his case brought up to the Supreme Court. And he did win. But then, despite how much that he did win, the US President Andrew Jackson and other top military personnel like that and other top politicians, they literally refused to even do anything about it. They actually didn't even care. They just didn't bother. They didn't even care about what happened. They moved those Native Americans as cattle for miles. And that happened. And that was the name of how that actually came known as Trail of Tears. And a lot of the Cherokee, the Cherokee and other those Native Americans, part of the tribes that was part involved in this move, has never forgotten this. They always will remember and never will forgive American government. And I don't blame them. Like 4,000 of their own people died during a move because for one reason. And if I told like I told Game Guy that if the American government had made a deal with the Native Americans, if they could grow the cotton for the U.S. government, Instead, had they been forced moving them, they could still have been living in that particular area, but they could have been taking care of the growing of cotton for the U.S. government and return. If that happened, none of those 4,000 people that died in unlike other those reservations for Native American tribes are located scattered throughout the United States. If the U.S. government never actually involved the fights with the American tribes, those reservations would not have existed. I think it's about 366 reservations scattered in just America alone. That's crazy. And like I found out, there's only 20% of each Native American tribe that can actually speak its original language. There were one massive execution of Native Americans. I believe it was Apache led by Geronimo, which is not actually his Native American name, was which later Americanized. Um, After he's tried to defend against his fight against the settlers, the U.S. government they responded by captured tons of his people and have a mass hanging of that as a punishment. And I believe that if I remember right, it was either between 20 or even as 40 Native Americans. And that is the so far the biggest execution in U.S. history as so far. But still, Geronimo, he didn't give up. The Apaches start fighting against each other and other settlers. They even attacked several Native uh, uh, American forts throughout the Midwest under that. And it's just crazy how it's being shown. America really could have been a good place. But despite that, America really went crazy. Like the Civil War. During that time, the black people, they were not considered as even citizens. They were not even considered as humans. They were considered as property. Like you can look, and even of those plantation owners who had slaves, he could kill them, and he would never been arrested. Think about it. A lot of people actually, well, during the time, who managed to escape and managed to get them free from being a slave, could have moved up to the North State, like New York or that part of the country. When they happened, slaves or slave owners or slavers, as they called, could travel all the way to those North States, capture those free slaves, and brought them back. Or if a free slave would travel in the South, despite having papers showing I am free, I'm a free man, those papers was useless. You can end up being a slave back again. There were in fact one man. One man was born into slavery, Frank. He was during the 1800s. He was born into slavery, and he has actually had, he had, I think he has around 10 kids with his wife. But he managed to buy himself free first, then his wife, and then his children. But then something happened that most people never, probably not unlike, have heard of. They actually moved to one place in one state where they actually started a city, whereas a small town, an actual official town. And it remained like that for a number of years until the rail system was moved away from that part of town, and it's over time became depopulated, and well, it's gone by now. But I mean, I never heard of that story after I saw this on Team America, Team Time, what's it called? Time Team America. it is a good show. That it shows you part of American history. But I say this, and I know that many Americans actually agree with me on this one, that slavery during the time before the Civil War, and even until after, is not something that most Americans don't want to forget. Because that was probably the most darkest time in American history. And if there are people saying, slavery, what is that about? You like they're past, we move on. I would like I would have been pissed. Especially people who have been slaves for generations. Think about it. And even this much shock you. Even Obama, he actually had one of his earliest, I believe it was his 8 times great grandfather, was brought to America as a slave during the 1600s. Just imagine how that feels for him. Knowing that his 8 times great grandfather was brought there as a slave. How would you even feel like, say, if Skylight? How would you feel if your 5 or maybe it's 8 times grandfather was a slave, and now that was not even heard of until, or that was part of the family, but you never heard of, and you find out that your that time great so many times back grandfather was
I
a
probably
slave.
want I probably want proof. Like,
Exactly.
show me. Like, excuse me?
Yeah. Because, or how about this? How would you even feel that you were, like, how would you feel if you find out you were related to an actual family that was slavers and actually owned, like, say, over 100 slaves, and that they actually make profit of slavery? I would have been stunned. First of all, I would like Skylight. I would like men to demand proof, and if that turned out to be real, I would have been horrified. Like, if I found out my family had been slavers for, say, since the slavers started being brought here around, I believe maybe it's around 1700s at most, around late 1600s and early 1700s. But if I find out if I had slavers in my family from the late 1600s and up to like maybe as 1865, where slavery was eventually officially dismissed, abolished in the entire country, I would have been terrified, knowing number of generations of my own freaking family would have been slavers and didn't even care how that they were treated. And even if I still have some relatives in the South, where some most part of black people being still treated such bad way, and it still is some have if I find out that I have relatives there, and if I reach out to them and I go visit them and seeing how they treat black people in opening, I would like, how can you treat those people like that? They're human beings. And they were like, how would you even try? How do you do? What do you do back home? I mean, I had several black friends. They probably wouldn't believe me. But the problem is, slavery is one thing in the part of American history will never be forgotten because new things always being discovered. Part of that, even every single day, you Americans, you find more details what happened part of America, but before and even after Civil War, when the slavery was most active, like you can find some new plantations in the area, and who knows? I mean, what if that they actually could have been some sort of plantations in Michigan area that had huge population of slaves, and most people don't even know about it. And I mean, okay, how about this? Why would you feel that your family at the time of Civil War were actually involved with slavery or slaves, but not as slavers, but as part of the Underground Railroad. How do you feel about that? Unless you even know what that is. No, Cody. Okay, you probably do. You guys even know what Underground Railroad is?
Well, my innocent mind says it's a rare world that is underground, but I think I know what it is.
Not exactly. During the Civil War, from like 1860 to like 1870, people, white people, black people, actually did, especially in the South. There were tons of white people that was actually working to take slaves up to the north, like as to like New York State, but that was not the final stop. The last destination, Canada. So basically, several group of white people had safe houses throughout in the bayous of in the south, where escaped prisoners or escaped slaves could hide at. Eventually, were later be transported further along upward to Canada, where they were actually free. Because in Canada at the time, there were no slavery. So that was the name Underground Railroad. If you guys have anyone in your family part of that, how would you feel?
But I mean, there are people that were, well, trying to get rid of
no,
slavery.
yes, but no. But I'm trying to be okay, Cody. If I'm trying to explain it better, during the 1860s, when the slavery was a big deal, still back in the South, and at northern states, there were where slavery was not there was didn't exist. But there were actually people in the South, white people, that part of an organization called as um, known as Underground Railroad. They were working to bring escaped slaves, slaves that had escaped from those for the slavers, and take them to Canada where they can be free. Because in Canada there were no such thing as slavery. So, how would you guys feel if you had anyone that was involved with Underground Railroad by taking escaped slaves to freedom in Canada? How would you feel if you had that in your family?
Well, I feel a lot happier knowing my family tried to free them than try to keep them. If that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah, because having, like, say, if if Skylight find out his family, like, say, is his, I don't know, say maybe as several times grandparents back that time were deeply involved in the Underground Railroad, meaning that helping slaves from escaping from being in slavery into freedom. If he found out that, he, I mean, he would have been happy. And also, those ancestors would be heroes, definitely from my eyes. And if Kubo, if his family was
Hmm?
still, if Kubo's family lived in Canada during the 1860s, and his family was part of this underground railroad. If you don't know what that is, Kubo, it's basically is an old organization back in the 1860s during the Civil War era, where that's actually helped to transport escaped slaves to Canada for
Oof.
freedom. Yeah. So there was not only white people, but also black people was involved in that part of that organization. And since when the slaves came to Canada, they were free there because there were no such things as slavery in that country. So let's say this: if
Yeah.
Game Guy if Game Guy, Skylight, and Cody had family members involved in that organization, I know that they would be considered those ancestors as heroes. And if your family lived in Canada during the 1860s, during the time of Civil War, and that you find out your family were involved in that organization that were receiving that took in those slaves in your country and provided them with homes and other things they need. I know for sure. I know you for sure you would have been happy considering those ancestors as heroes.
Hmm.
I would. I would. If I find out I had family who actually was involved in that organization and to transport slaves into freedom, I would consider those ancestors as absolutely as a hero. But here's the part of it: knowing that these people did that constantly during the 1860 to 1865, considering that they were always at risk. If they had been found, they could have been executed in the South without a trial. They could have been executed.
Hmm.
But still, even if, like, say, if Game Guy had a family member or several members involved in this, and one of them ended up being killed, the others, they would still continue to fight and work to make sure that those slaves managed to escape. Because even though they didn't brought the slaves all at once across the border to Canada, they actually managed to take some of the slaves to safe houses in the bayou. If you don't know what bayou is, it's like a swamp area, like a swamp area, and and at the time those places could be dense forest, and most people would even go in there. Yeah, like Louisiana. Louisiana actually has a lot of bayous. It's like Kubo. Have you seen Princess and the Frog?
Nope.
Have you guys seen Princess and the Frog?
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind when I heard
Yeah,
Bayou. So.
exactly. Yeah, that is what it's like. That is either of those places where escaped slaves were located until before they were moved to different locations, like in the further up north. But it was not always they. I can say this: not every single escaped slave managed to get to Canada, though. I don't think everyone did. There were might have been risks some of them managed to be captured on travel upwards. It's possible that some of them may have been captured once again, or even been killed on the spot. Because back in that time, slave owners they could kill their slaves even without being captured or even put in jail for that. Because to them, they were property and those human beings. Okay, what if the roles was opposite? What if the black people were the dominant and the white people were the ones that enslaved? Think about it.
Yeah.
That would have been opposite. So the dark times of yeah, I know that, Cody. Don't worry. But part of this, like this, when it comes to the slavery in American history, it is one day that people never want to forget because there's a dark day. And you may think that my country has never been involved in slavery. Well, it has. My country has also been involved in slavery. But I don't think it much the same scale as America did. But I don't know. I haven't really much looked into that much, but I know that my country was involved in slavery. But I can say this much: every single country in the world had been in some form of been involved in slavery. The Vikings, for example, they did slavery. They could actually take slaves and they could travel down in Constantinople or Istanbul, what's the current name is, and selling those slaves openly. And I'm not ashamed that my if I have Viking ancestors that could have been slavers. That's a problem. That if I find out I have Vikings in my family, it is hard. These almost impossible to figure out if those were slavers, farmers, or traders. It's difficult to find out because back at the time, between the 1700s and up to 1000 AD, there were no recorded anything about the Vikings. They never had that. That came way a long time afterwards, like in the I think it was the 15 or 1600s. But yeah, slavery is one time is which I pretty much I would never want to forget. But I know that Canada,
Yeah.
but I know that Canada had done slavery at some point in the past. But I don't know if the same scale as America or my country has. I don't know. But to be honest, you may think slavery is a long gone past event. Unfortunately, no. It has still is today. In
Wait,
fact,
what?
a lot of different slavery has been pretty much even ongoing even to this day. But not as much in the same in the past though, but in different ways, like human trafficking. That is like a modern version of slavery back now these days. Even a lot of famous clothing brand stores who have factories around the world can use people in like slave conditions. Like they had to work like sewing the clothes or children or child soldiers in different countries and part of the world. That is also like a slavery, taken away from the home, their families, and to be serving as soldier. And just imagine that though. At least child soldier don't exist in your country or mine. It doesn't. They are mostly in like in African countries, but piracy, like pirates, that has been around since uh, as early as marine times travelers,
Hmm.
like in BC times. And even though that piracy, there were actually one time during the Golden Age, what they call it, around the 1700s, pirates, or say at a time when England were enemies with Spain. Any British ships could actually attack Spanish ships and take their cargo because they had a document showing them as legally them to attack any Spanish ship they came across and take the core cargo, and that was called pirate privateer. So in a way, it was illegal for them to maybe as be a pirate. But if after when Spain and England became friends, that those uh, those legal rights to attack Spanish ships abolished. So any of those who tried, well, they were actually eventually they became pirates, and if they were found, they were hanged. And I'm serious, they were hanged. Let's talk about something else. And that was a little bit too depressed, but so how is so better with your cousin, those girls game guy? But how is the things over at your place with your cousin and her friends over?
Actually, turns out last night they left.
What?
Yeah,
Why?
apparently they left. I don't know why. I woke up and they weren't here. So
Wow. Did you even ask your mom or why even
I don't think
you?
I think they might not have actually. I don't think it never was a sleepover. I think they just came over. I just thought it was. So I couldn't
Ah,
actually prank
that
them.
is weird. Especially when
That
they kick
explains my
Roy.
voice is here right now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I don't know why they kicked Roy out.
yeah,
Poor guy.
they kicked Roy out of his own bedroom.
Yep,
Poor guy didn't
and he
deserve this.
was mad about it too. Also, I gotta go eat.
Yes. Well, let's say for this. If your brother did had a key to his door, if he was the only one who had the key, he could just unlock the door and then not having the problem. But for when it comes to my case, I can't lock my door because I don't have the key. The only ones, like every single bedroom here, has a key lock.
I don't think Roy's door is even lockable.
But I know that my bedroom has one, my parents has one, and guest room has. But the
I know
thing
mine
is,
isn't. So
yeah. But here, none of us in the family has a key to our the bedrooms. Since despite we have living in this house for about 17 or 16 or 17 years, we never actually had a key. If we would if we were to go to the former landlords, they wouldn't even have the key. Or the current ones either. But then when we lived in another house very much identical to this one, when I mean identical, all these houses here is pretty much basically identical in interior, except for two. Only one, which only like a small apartment size, but the other one we lived had the same type of doors, but we never had keys to those doors either. The only two rooms in this house that have lock is the bathrooms. Other than that, if we would have intruders or any burglars, oh yeah, lock my door, good luck, and try to block them with the closet. Yeah, right. The closet is like almost attached to the wall, and that would be almost impossible to remove. The bed, probably, but it's kind of a bit big, and by the time I would try to move it, yeah, the burglars would have definitely opened my door. And the bathroom doors, yeah, I can say this much: those doors would not be much help. They can probably kick in quite easily, or they can just take a kitchen knife, like not with those big sharp ones, but those like when you have it for the food. Take one of those knives, the bathroom door to outside. You can actually twist the lock from outside to unlock it. Surprising enough, I had no idea why that's part of it. And that's like, okay, match that. Okay, either that or kick the door in. At least though we have the front door, it's a little bit more secure. That door, and we even have a camera in the front door. That is connected to my dad's cell phone. We have a camera at the back porch, but slight problem. If the power were to go out, that camera turns off. That is connected to the actual power system in the house. But the other one is a battery. Yeah, it's it's kind of a bit weird, but still. But any particular crimes in this area is like non-existent. There were only they were like 2 years ago, I think it was. There were at this small playground not far where I live. There were there were actually a few people, teenagers, that was selling drugs I think maybe coke or heroin. I don't know. Maybe meth. I don't know for certain. Police arrived a couple times, but they were asked it was dead. Never gone. Never there anymore. But my mom told me each time, especially during the winter time, when that happened, not to walk that place because you never know. Because people, when they're doing drugs or selling it, you have no idea if they can be armed by knives, guns, or basic any weapon. I did walk that past them once, and I did see some teenagers at the place. But I don't know if they were selling anything or just hanging out at the place. I don't know. But I didn't stay that long though. You may think I'm a big guy, 6 feet tall. I'm not that well trained as Kubo is. You may think I can easily beat down those people. Maybe. And I say maybe. That depends like how many are. If like 4 against 1, nope. I would like heck no. Bye. No thanks. I prefer not to be involved in any such violence at all much. If it's like 2 people, probably have at least a better chance, but if it was like 4 or 5, oh no. I would be outnumbered easily. Uh I mean but then my mom at one point she actually walked by my old elementary school, which is not that far from I live. She walked by a small how would say wind shelter kind of. She saw was actually a few people there, like a few teenagers, a little bit smoking something, not cigarettes, not weed. I believe it was stronger drugs, and they didn't even try to hide it. And this was actually during daytime, and the school isn't even far from that spot. Maybe it's maybe 10, 15 feet away from the school building. Literally. And I do believe that the police were called and they actually get there while the teenagers were still there, like smoking, still smoking. And they got arrested. That's the problem. Drugs, you know. I mean, you can actually get addicted to even the common things like normal aspirin, like painkillers. Think about it. If you can actually be addicted to like coke, meth, or any of those heavy drugs, but anything like aspirins or those smaller, less painful, less strong painkillers can still be much addicted. I don't know, like say Skylight. I mean, if people could start drinking, I'm not saying alcohol, no, but if he would start drinking a lot more Pepsi or Sprite or even just only 7 Up, almost like every single day, and even has 7 Up as if he had cereal instead of milk. What if he took 7 Up instead? And that it clearly is a clear sign of addiction. You can get addicted to even anything. Like burgers for all place, I don't know. And that's almost like Game Guy. He has like an addiction for steaks, fries.
No, I don't.
Don't blame me though. But I mean, it's an example. You can actually could have like that as also form of addiction. Because addiction doesn't mean there have to be those heavy, strong drugs. It can be even non-drug related items like Pepsi, 7 Up, or even energy drinks. Let's say those heavy, strong gamers. Those people can actually be having serious energy drinks like Monsters, Red Bulls, and bags of chips, burgers in front of them as their own sort of food. Just imagine that type of lifestyle. I mean, say if Cody, if he decide to be only be drinking, uh, say 7 Up all the time and nothing else, even drink 7 Up into breakfast, dinner, lunch, even midnight snack, that it would have been clear sign of addiction. And I can say I kind of have an addiction when it comes to Pepsi. But luckily though, I haven't had Pepsi in quite a while. But sometimes I had the urge I want to have a Pepsi or energy drinks, anything like that. And we don't if we don't have that at home, people will go crazy. But luckily though, I haven't even got that crazy at least. Ouch. My throat hurts. Ugh. Yeah, smoking is it's one thing. It's bad. I mean, that's a problem also. That when it comes to like just regular cigarettes, it can be difficult to get you to can also can be a little bit difficult to stop. If you smoke for say 10, almost 20 years or so, it can be a little bit difficult for you to just stop. Sometimes people can't have the mental strength for that. Some can try, but always would go back smoking some more and more. My grandfather, he has smoked for a number of years, and one day he had this very much strong cough, and it's like, nope, I'm not going to smoke anymore. And the very next day, he had stopped. He just quit. Some people do have that strong mental strength that can just stop this after just a single day, but others, they don't. My parents, they tried. They tried to stop smoking at one point for at least a few months. And I do tell you, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty at all. I mean, seriously, it happened when I was still living with my parents, and boy, they were constantly attacking each other, like nagging, 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 fighting, 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 all the time. And how do you think I felt? Especially since I was the only one of my siblings that still lived home. I had to experience that for several days, for months. It was exhausting. So, and my dad almost said that he would like to have a divorce, which never happened, luckily though. But during that time, when my parents didn't smoke for a few months, I don't know exactly how far in what happened, but I took my mom's cigarettes, snapped them in half, and flushed them down in the toilet. I'm not joking. I actually did that. And my parents found out. My dad was freaking pissed at me. Who cares? I tried to stop this fighting. And I tried to even hide the cigarettes. But that even worked. That made it mad as well. I was like, if you really want to smoke, then keep smoking. If you die of it, I wouldn't even care. But I do. But then things did happen to which eventually my dad stopped smoking. 2017 was the year when he stopped. Because it did happen the day after Valentine's Day that day, that year, February 15. My dad was on the couch, middle of the night. He had this severe pain, like not as like stomach pain, but a really severe pain. Um, if I had asked him from one scale 1 to 10 at the time, he probably said 100. That painful. He could even move. He could even lay on the side without the pain, but even it's so intense. So we called for an ambulance, which they did. And surprising enough, I was asleep at the time when that happened, and I never woke up at all, which surprised me. I ain't not even that heavy sleep about it. I don't. But as in one of those MTs told my mom to my dad should put on some pants because they look decent, and he could barely stand on account of that pain. It was like if someone had stabbed him in the back with a big butcher knife. That severe pain he had in his back. What happened? It turns out when he came to hospital, when they did this X-ray on my dad, turns out the main blood vessel that goes along the spine had burst. My dad was told from the doctor he had like 5% chance of survive. Like 5%. Like 95% chance of mortality, only 5%. Like freaking 5%. And he did survive. Took him like 2 weeks to recover. And how do you think my mom felt what happened? She was devastated. I had never seen her that way when she was crying. And since I usually go bowling on Wednesdays, several part of seasons will happen, but that particular Wednesday, I didn't. For a good reason. When I found out my dad was in the hospital, but we didn't know exactly which hospital. Because the nearest is they were in the town where my sister lives. But they don't even have that type of department or that division of section of the hospital for take care of things like that. So I thought maybe they had to go to like 2 different hospitals, which one of them I know, which is one of the top which have the top care in this type of situation, or this care of medical problem. But they weren't. But they actually went to the other option, which I told my sister. She was the one actually call around that particular hospital asking for my dad if he was there. He was. So I told my mom I will skip bowling this day because bowling I will always do next time. And so my mom, my sister, and my brother drove all the way to the hospital, but my mom was driving. She was in such bad situation that she could barely even do anything. Because when I came out from my room that time, when I heard it, I heard crying. And I not like light crying, but like say, if you find out your grandfather, your own parent crying, like that devastated cry. I had never seen my mom cry that bad in my entire life. I'll tell you, it shocked me. And after that, I remained at home because someone had to look after the dog since she couldn't like bring it into the hospital. And during the time, my mom barely ate anything at all when my dad was in the hospital. And after he left the ICU to full recovery, when I was able to see him himself, he told me and my brother something to make sure that my mom doesn't kill herself if he would even survive. That was one of the last things I ever even expected my dad to tell me. And like when I found out that my dad only had 5% chance to survive this, I was like devastated. I mean, you probably like felt the same way if you find out your dad or your mom or basically even your own one of your siblings have only 5% chances to survive if you were close to them. Though even I'm not that close to my parents, but still, 5%. My dad beat that though. But that was at the time after. That was the time when my dad stopped smoking. Shortly afterwards, my mom didn't smoke either because I don't know. I don't remember exactly what happened, but around about the same time. But then I found out something that my dad told me while after when he came home, that this condition that he had is genetic, meaning I, my sister, and my brother can have this condition. So the only way to find out if we do have it, if we have to do an X-ray, but only when we are in our 50s, not before them. If it happened, I can have this condition. I don't know what else to do. Am I scared? Heck yeah. Am I afraid that everything does like it happen right at the same moment as my dad, like happen right now, or happen in the middle of the night? Hell yeah. I'm scared. Beyond my words.
It is understandable.
Even if, but even if this, well, Cody, it's hard to say that it's impossible to say right now if if I have the same condition as my dad or not. I can't go to the hospital for doing
Hmm.
X-ray because I need to have a very good reason to do it. And the thing is, you can't do X-ray after X-ray after X-ray constantly. That will also increase the risk of cancer. That's the problem. Also, another thing is that I can't do that. And as my dad told me, I have to do this in my 50s. I don't know, like if I'm 50, 55, or even close to 59. This, like I said, is can be a genetic condition. It's just
Hmm.
when I found that out, I was terrified, knowing that I had. I mean, to be honest, I am 32 years old, and I'm getting closer and closer to 50s. Do you think I'm a little bit terrified when that happened when I'm like 48 and like realized, oh shit, I'm getting closer to 50, and I was like, well, I should probably arrange an X-ray over the next 2 years. But even if I don't have it, there's always a good chance that a good risk that my children could have it themselves. Just imagine that. I would
Hmm.
never be the same. I would not be the same if I found out my own children had the same condition as when they're in their 50s. I mean, I wouldn't even. Okay, if I find out I had that when I'm 50 and they had to wait 50 years themselves, I'm like in my 100 when they find out they have it. And like having that, I will have a heart attack if that happens. And heart attacks runs in my family.
Hmm.
My great grandfather, he died heart attack when he was in his 60s, or I think it was in mid 70s. My grandfather, my dad's dad, died of cancer. My grandmother, same thing. One of them died from blood cancer, another one from stomach cancer. Realizing that two of my family died from cancer, one died of heart attack. Knowing how close I myself had the risk that I could develop cancer myself, or even have a heart attack. Heart attacks in those people in their 20s and their 30s, it's possible. Even 18-year-olds can have a heart attack, but that's not that common. It's possible, but not as common as those for elder ones. Perhaps maybe it could have been a higher risk that an 18-year-old can have a heart attack if the family is having some sort of genetic condition that makes them have a heart attack even at young age,
Hmm.
which is I don't know, but it's possible. I think. You mean imagine it? I mean, think about it. How do you think I felt when I found out my dad was in the hospital? That he was so freaking close to die. Like having like Mr. Green Reaper like standing by next to his bed when he found out. My mom barely ate anything. Dude, I thought I did it. I never had any appetite at all during that 2 weeks. But I did try to eat as much best as I could. How do you think anyone else in those families found out? I mean, I found out another man who had the same problem as my dad did. He survived, though, but it happened when he was taking a shower. And he was in his 60s. Yeah. It happened when that man who also had the same conditions as my dad had when the blood vessels burst. It happened for that man when he was taking a shower. Just
Oh.
imagine things. Yeah. When I found out my dad had a condition, and even to this day, I'm shocked that I didn't even wake up when when the ambulance arrived. Normally, I'm not even that heavy sleeper at all. I mean, I can't even wake up if anyone uses a doorbell. The sound is a bit loud, but still, even my window is just about above the front door. And even if I had the window open, it just a crack, I can easily wake up. But if someone uses a doorbell, sometimes, middle of the night, I can wake up by the sound of the doorbell or in the morning. But even if I look down, no one isn't even there. Even if from the door out to this carport, perhaps like 10, 15 feet. And I can actually hear if anyone walks or runs away from that place. I would have heard if someone actually done that. And every time I do look down, I don't see anyone. And since my mom is sleeping on the couch since she did a foot surgery for about a couple of weeks, over a month ago, and if she wasn't lying there, and if I heard a doorbell, easily my mom would have waken up and heard a doorbell. But nothing. Sometimes I can actually wake up due to the fact I've been hearing the doorbell in my dreams. And since I heard the sound so many times, it's stuck in my memory. And for now, for a few times I actually heard the sound, I didn't even bother to even look down to see if anyone could even at the door. I'm just saying, things that happened to my dad was the most devastating shock that my family ever had. Just imagine you having your dad or your mom like on the couch or in bed or even your brother. Like, let's say what if that Roy is in his bed and suddenly, or if your daddy in his bed and suddenly he screams out of serious pain, and none of your family has no idea what's happening, and when he in the hospital, find out that he is have the same condition as my dad had, and that he been given perhaps like maybe a 5 or maybe a 8% chance of survive. Using a low odds, but I don't know for people with that low risk of like 5 to 8%, they usually don't survive. Sometimes people even are that low risk that even they manage to survive the surgery. There's always a risk that they wouldn't even survive the next those times or weeks for recovery. My dad lost his taste buds in the tongue, so he can't taste much anything like he did before that. I can never imagine like having the same problem happen to me one day, which I really don't have. really want it not to happen. But if I still have this condition, there is nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do until when I reach my 50s. Then I can do the X-ray or a CAT scan, which is also called, to find out if I had a condition or not. If I do have it, then it's only a matter of time before when the blood vessel bursts and well, I should probably type my last will testament, say, well, that was nice to meet you all people. And if it did happen and I died, none of you would even have found out. None of you guys wouldn't have found out otherwise. Think about it. But as a bonus, or at least a little more as to be feeling a bit better, is because the medical science has made huge progress in developing fields when it comes to different things. Like cancer. A lot of research have found vaccine for uterus cancer that which women has, and HIV has not cured it, but they have found some type of medicine that will at least slow down the process from not developing full scale AIDS. I'm saying things like that is good thing as it is that the medical science has made huge progress over the years. And it's like Game Guy and his family, his parents, they're a slight dementia. And things when it comes to Alzheimer's, they have made a huge but small progress in that development of a cure. If they can find cure for that, there is no way to say that they can actually find even cure for all dementia. But I'm pretty sure there is some form of medicine that can actually slow down development of dementia. I think it is. Yeah, this has been a very serious topic. Yeah, 2 hours and 22 minutes already. Jeez, that was flying fast by. Yeah, I should probably end stream here since wow, this went quite serious in the end.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
wow.
I think it was
Okay.
throughout the whole thing. Because
Yeah, I
at the
mean,
beginning you talked about demons, and then you ended with this topic.
Yeah. I mean, talking about slavery and all that things about past history, the American part of history, and all this. I mean, I never even expected, to be honest. I was originally trying to plan to name this stream as Crazy Friday stream, but yeah, we was even crazy now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next stream will be tomorrow. Hopefully, unless my throat isn't even that hurt, since I was doing since I did recorded a story earlier, non-fictional MLP story this time about a family that moves into a haunted house by a demon. And since I try to make the demon's voice a little bit more deeper than usual, and I can really feel right now my throat is slightly in
Dead?
pain. Yeah, it is slight of pain. So I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have done that, but another thing is that video is 1 hour and 2 minutes long. Never expected to be in 1 hour. I thought maybe around 20 plus or maybe 30 minutes. But in an hour. Yep. That it will be not as bad as expected to be, since it will take about maybe an hour to save it as a video. Oh, Brony Dreamer, you're really, really, really late, dude.
Oh wow.
What the? You're really late. You know that. And I was about to end here. uh yeah, but next will be tomorrow. And next Saturday will be the next game show about SCP Foundation, which is a fictional organization, which is not a real one. Since if you guys want to know more about that until next game show, just look it up. They even had tons of videos of that on YouTube. I'm just saying it's it contains a lot of crazy things, items, people, even some reality warpers, as they called, meaning that they can alter reality in a mere instant. Some entities in that organization are so dangerous. They cannot be allowed to be in the public. Some can be so dangerous they can kill you in an instant.
Can you imagine
So
if you met SCP-682?
yeah, or as also known as the Heart Destroyer reptile.
I think that would be the most fearful experience one would probably experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
I can
can
say,
destroy him or her. Is it that
yeah,
he or her?
I can say there is actually even a number of SCP humanoids, which is actually humans. But
Oh,
some of them are, yeah, some actually can be just born as a normal human, but some can be born, but I think like Cain or Abel, which is their nickname, um, they can speak ancient Sumerian language, which is considered as extinct for about 5 millennia or 5,000 years.
oh, I can speak Latin.
Well, and one thing about Cain, what is known as, well, he is more friendly and he is actually very pleasant to be around. The only thing is that he is his diet is not vegetarian. He's only eat meat. Nothing is
Oh,
vegetarian. Because if you put him on a field of grass, that ground will be dead. Like it doesn't even have anything. That means even bacterial life forms in the ground doesn't exist anymore. That would also be completely wiped. That what he is. Mhm. But his counterpart, Abel, boy, if you even was even near him, all I can say is run. He is a walking kill machine. He kill people, and he can summon swords, knives, daggers from a small micro wormhole. After those weapon has been used and he let them go, they vaporize like that. But yeah, I can say some of the humanoid SCPs are can be around human size. Others smaller. Others can be maybe I don't know, maybe two, maybe it's 5 times bigger as a normal human. One one of the SCP beings. Well, I don't know exactly how many times, but I would guess maybe 10, 15 times larger than an actual human being, which is not contained by the SCP Foundation at all, which is still standing in the free life, but doesn't move from the spot where it's standing. Oh, ow, ow, my back. I need to stretch a bit more often. There we go.
You're getting old, man.
Dude,
Not kidding.
not cool. At least you're older than me. You're like 50. You're like 60.
You wish.
I mean, Skylight, he's like 80.
I mean, if I was 60, I would have Dumbledore's beard.
Yeah, that beard is from your ass.
Oh, come on.
If only we
Wait,
ended
wait.
sooner.
Wait. You probably had Gandalf's size of beard in your face and on your arms. That would be weird. That would be weird. Well, I should probably end here. That's been only 2 hours and a half. Well, Cody, good luck. Hope you win this time, or even second time for second place. But yeah, if you don't show up here tomorrow, it's fine. Well, this went really completely dark sometimes in this stream. First, talking about slavery, and talk about slavery in American history, and then talk about really dark stuff like death or something.
Well, we had a bit of a good time talking about Pepsi.
Oh, that's true.
Speaking
Attitude.
of which, real quick, Swish, did you see what I said earlier before as Cody showed up?
Pepsi Halloween Cola.
Yep.
Never heard of that one.
It's actually interesting. It has kind of like a bubblegum flavor. It was like a mystery flavor, and it had kind of like a bubblegum flavor.
Well, I would like to try that one if it still exists.
I think it was a limited time.
Yeah, probably. Who knows? Maybe now time. Do it came back. It's always
Anywho.
possible. Well, until next time, everyone. This is Swish Diablo signing off. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.